Coming to you from the penthouse of my tower high atop the majestic Sapphire Mountain Range in the Northern Rockies, and also from the Stygian depths of the foreboding forests and bogs of northern Minnesota. Welcome to World Bigfoot Radio. I'm your host, Duke. I'm joined here by my co-host and tech wizard, Grant, to bring you another entertaining and thought-provoking chat on the subject of mystery hominids, wherever they may be found. But before we get started with tonight's show, let me tell all our listeners that if you have had a close encounter or sighting, we would love to hear your story. And also, if you have any questions, comments, or complaints about the show, or have a suggestion for a future show topic, hey, let us know. Both of us can be reached at worldbigfootradio@gmail.com, and I also have a page on Facebook called Montana Bigfoot Project, where you can also reach me, and as well as that, you can see blogs, video, and listen to podcasts not only from myself, but from many other reputable researchers from all over North America. So without further ado, it's time to go squatching. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. We're really lucky with us today. We got a really great guest with Donnie, over from the East Coast, and has something in common with me and Grant. He also grew up in the middle of nowhere. And so he's got some real interesting experiences that I'd like to have him share with you guys. So we got Donnie with us today. Hi, Donnie.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good.
Doing great, brother. Do you want to let us know a little bit about your background, your upbringing, sort of, the area you grew up in, what your knowledge of these things were before you saw one, or how y'all worked into being interested in this?
Well, I actually grew up, and they were just really a part of. They were another animal in the woods when I was a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up down in Southern Virginia. That's 65 miles southwest of Richmond and Buckingham County. And
you're really out in the middle of nowhere over there, then.
Oh yeah, we had 135 acres that was completely landlocked with timber companies, and just to get to our property, we had to go down one dirt road, make a right on another dirt road, and go about a mile up into that dirt road, and then you would get to our property. And
wow.
It was
that's a long ways back there in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was an old slave plantation back in the day, and there's actually an old slave graveyard on the place. That thing was all grown over with honeysuckle. It's a creepy place.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it's just, the whole time I hunted there, I've never seen another person.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
So you could expect that if there was the biggies in the area would be having the same experience. They would be probably a little bit less watchful because they know there's no humans around there. So we have to be careful.
Well, yeah, it was just it wasn't until Daddy broke down and got cable TV that I thought we called them no necks, and I thought that the whole planet knew that they were real. I didn't know that, there was this big debate going on that they're not real. I was amazed. I was like, Jesus, we can see some, it's not like we had them sleeping on the porch or anything, but,
they're around enough that you were pretty well aware that they were there.
Oh yeah. We knew they were there.
Did your family have an awareness of these things, that they were around? Did they ever say anything to you when you were a kid, or?
Oh yeah, Daddy told me, and I started hunting started going with him when I was 4 and 5. I can remember that. Going squirrel hunting or something like that, and I would, he would sit on the ground, and I would sit between his knees, and he would just talk to me and tell me, this is this, that sound is this, and you see a track on the ground, that's this, and, you know, it grew into, you know, I started going on my own at the age of 9 or 10, you know. When I say on my own, I would be with my dad and a couple of friends that used to hunt the property, and, you know, I would walk with them, and they would drop me off at my deer stand, and they would go to theirs, and they would come out of the woods. They would pick me up, and, you know, until I got a little bit older,
Right.
to where I could start doing things on my own. And
how old were you the first time you had? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're very, you know, even though they're around, they're just so damn elusive.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, they're a strange acting creature, you know, because they act the same way at night when you can't see them as they do in the daytime, you know. They still hopping tree to tree, or, you know. And I think that's what, you know, a lot of people make a mistake. They go in the woods, or they've been hunting for their whole life, and they say, I've never seen one, or whatever. Well, the chances of you having them around are, you know, are going to be rare, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like one is just going to walk out and greet you.
Right.
And, you know, another mistake people make is I've hunted places where I've had folks walk right underneath of my deer stand. Literally, I was 10 feet in the air, not high at all. And they never saw me.
Mm-hmm.
And people never look up. And these things do get in trees.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like to mention as much as I can to people. Be aware of what's above you. You know, in some of the areas like out here in the West, you need to be aware of that just because there could potentially be a mountain lion sitting up in the tree waiting for you to walk underneath them. But these things will go up in trees, too, especially when they're younger. The sentinels will go up and sit in trees to have a better eye view of what's going on around them and whatnot. And just like you mentioned, me and Bear have been over that a few times now. They seem to think we can see in the dark as well as they do. So even if it's pitch black, they're still trying to hide behind trees.
Yeah, I do believe that if they ever figured that out, we would be in trouble.
Yeah, no kidding. Don't tell them. Don't tell them, Donnie. Don't let them know.
I'm not going to put no sign up or anything. But still, y'all, you know, as much as we had them, you know, I don't know how to. You know, I'm no researcher. You know, I don't go looking for them.
Right.
It was just something that I grew up with.
Did you have many other sightings in your area? The other, you know, I guess you didn't have nearby neighbors, but neighbors that were sort of around your area, did any of them ever report anything or say anything?
Oh, yeah, we had a family, I guess it was about three-quarters of a mile or maybe a mile from us. They had 6 children, and they were all females.
Oh, my God.
And as females grow, they mature.
Yeah.
You know, and then once they all start having their menstrual cycle, you end up with a lot of used feminine products in the trash.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say they were terrorized, but they picked up pretty quick to, you know, burn their trash right away.
Right.
Because,
and probably keep the girls indoors after dark, too.
Oh, yeah, we always, you know, when we had to walk somewhere, you know, and there was a girl, you always escorted her. Always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And nobody ever said, you know, you better walk such and such because a boater's going to snatch her. It was just something we did, you know.
Right.
It was something.
Well, as far as that goes, if you're out in the sticks, you could be just, you know, where I used to live, we had lots of bears, and it was the same sort of drill with them. If you're going to be out wandering around at night, bring a light with. Don't go out by yourself. You should probably have a gun. You know, just be aware of what's potentially in your neck of the woods, I guess. And, you know, so I grew up that way, too. I know exactly what you're talking about. How old were you the first time you had like any kind of a close brush with them, where it went from being something that you'd been told was out there to something that you now experienced that you for a fact was out there?
Well, that's what I was going to start to say. I don't know, I know there's like different kinds of sightings, like you have a Class A and a B sighting or whatever. I guess I was probably 14, 15, and this was nothing that I caught out of the corner of my eye. I actually saw, I'm going to call it probably a juvenile. It'd be 5.5 feet tall, 5 feet tall. And I saw it take off. I think it was pacing me in the woods, and I kept hearing it. And when I looked over and saw it, I caught it like, they'll hop tree to tree, and I caught it right in the middle of tree to tree. And they do have the ability to show expression on their face.
Yeah.
And he had that oh shit look on his face.
Oh, busted! The kid with his hand in the cookie jar look. Whoops.
And I'm telling you, those dudes are fast. When they want to...
Yeah.
I've never really seen one on a full, full breaking running speed, but, this dude was like maybe 5 yards off the edge of a soybean field. And when he saw me, it's not like he just took off bipedally. And he was using his arms, to pull trees or stuff as he was going.
Mm-hmm.
But never really got a good look at his face. I seen it, but it was so quick, and he was just gone.
Yeah, that's one thing that throws a lot of people about him. They don't realize, they think of the Sasquatch as this big, gigantic, bulky thing, and, it must shamble and move slow because it's so gigantic. And, oh, my God, no, they're so freaking fast you can't believe it when you see them move.
Oh, they're fast. Well, don't get that wrong. Don't get that wrong in a minute,
Yeah.
If you ever got the idea in your mind you think you're going to outrun one, you need to reevaluate your situation.
Yeah, running away from them is just generally a really bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
If they're warning you or something, you get out of their territory. Yeah, get out of their territory, but do not run, because they have that same sort of predatory instinct that most of the other predators do. If something's running away, hey, it's prey. And, they'll chase you before they even think about it.
But they not only chase you, they follow you around the woods. I know they do. I mean, I told you before, if I can find a picture, I will post it. I don't like to post a lot of pictures because you always get the trolls out there that say this or that. I don't need to hear it. I'm not trying to sell it to anybody.
Right.
I don't try to sell this to anybody. If you believe it, that's fine. If you don't believe it, I'm cool with that too. Half the time I got the notion, when I get somebody that, really gets on me about it, I really want to say to them, do you got a weekend or so free?
Mm-hmm.
Let me take you down home and we're going to get on a horse, and, if you want to ride with me, that's fine. If you want to ride your own horse, that's fine, too. And about 2 miles on the backside of our property, the area we hunted a lot was just, we called it the Black Swamp.
Oh, boy.
And it was all, so we had beaver dams that were 40, 50 feet wide. They had to have been, you could walk across them easily. And they were so high, on one side you had the water backed up, and on the other side, it was like a 20-foot drop down into the water that they had dammed up.
Wow, sounds like they were building that one for a while. That's not something they could just make overnight.
Oh, yeah, you could walk over that one easily. You could almost drive a vehicle over that. That thing was enormous. And
that's something that you guys don't have a whole lot of out there on the East Coast is beaver. It's really kind of cool to hear that there are still some over there.
Oh, there were tons of beavers. I used to hunt this deer stand right on the edge of the river. And on the other side of the river, I'm not going to say these people's name, you know, they were hard. They would not let you hunt their property at all. Mm-hmm. And Daddy told me that as far back as he could remember, those people never let anybody hunt. And they had over 1,500 acres. And nice. It just looked like, when you went there, you know, you forgot about airplanes and roads and cars. You saw you were in a different world.
Right.
And so quiet. It was really nice. But I used to hunt in that deer stand right there on the river, and I would see beavers all the time. You know, I would hear them, or they would, you know, they would see me, and I would hear them, you know, splash their tail real hard.
Yep, a little tail slap.
Yeah. And, you know, they leave an odd track, too.
Well, one of the reasons that I bring this up is I just want, you know, people to be aware that if you're in these areas where you got lots of woods and there's plenty of wildlife around, those are likely areas where these things could be living. You know, the more wildlife you see, different kinds and whatnot, the more it's obvious that there's available food for them. That's why they're living there. And, you know, these guys being the apex predators, they got a good-sized chunk of land, and they're looking for, you know, they're looking for the same thing. They're looking for areas that are rich in food and other animals, because that's where they're going to be able to make a better living. You know?
Well, there was
so that just, yeah, that just sort of makes sense. Well, now, what was your first actual sighting? Was that when you were on the horse? I mean, other than the one that you had when you were 15 and you were walking.
I was checking the place out for spring gobbler season. So I went in on horseback, and I went around the long way. You know, quiet as a church mouse. And this was really my only Class A sighting, if that's what you want to call it. And I went in there, and I had the wind coming to my face, which I wasn't playing the wind at all because I wasn't hunting or anything. But I did have the wind.
Right, you were just doing a recon for hunting season. You weren't actually hunting.
No, I wasn't. And so I got to where I was going to check the place out, got off the horse, lashed the horse up. And first of all, I want to say the horse's name was Bart. He was the most level-headed horse I'd ever seen. This dude wasn't scared of nothing. And I maybe walked 5 yards. I was on a fire road, like a fire break. And I walked maybe 5 yards into the woods. I never smelled anything or nothing. And boogers are not, they're not tree huggers. They're not friendly to the woods. They will tear shit up in a minute. It sounded like that little cartoon character, Tasmanian Devil.
Right.
Started winding up. I mean, things started breaking. Trees started shaking. I didn't know if it was a damn earthquake. I didn't know what was going on. And things quieted down for a second. And I put it together now. I'm pretty sure it was popping its teeth at me. It's like,
oh, jeez.
Now, I was close to this dude. And I always carried a 454 Casull with me. Mm-hmm. It was just something I carried. It wasn't, for protection against boogers or nothing like that. It was just something I carried when I went that far into the woods.
Yep.
So I started easing out of there. When I started putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, I kind of knew what was going on. And when I backed out to the edge, I got on the other side of Bart and started to put my foot in the stirrup. And this dude came, I'm telling you, he came out, he could care less that I was there.
Wow.
I think he wanted me to see him. I think he wanted me to know who was the boss.
So he was somewhere in that thicket, and as soon as he heard you coming in, then he set up a ruckus.
I'm sorry, signal broke up. What did you say?
I said, it sounds like he was sitting in that thicket somewhere, and when he heard you trying to come in, he set up a ruckus to let you know that he was there.
Well, I think I caught him with, I think I caught him doing something. I don't know what. But to this day,
I think it was his voice. You got to see him, so you might have had a decent guess at him since he came out. Then how tall do you think he was?
If I had to guesstimate, maybe 8.5 feet tall.
Jesus.
I know that. I know. We as people, we always try to humanize things.
Right.
And you tell somebody something's 8.5 feet tall, maybe 500 pounds. They look at you like you got 3 heads, but anything that can take one hand, and snap a 3-inch hardwood tree, break it off.
Mm-hmm.
That is an animal that needs to be respected.
Yep.
And my horse kept
be
cool. My horse kept his cool. And if people don't think that these things do not know what a firearm is, they are in for a rude awakening. Because I did put my hand on my pistol. I never pulled it out. I want to make that clear. I have no desire to harm one of these things. But I also have no desire to have my head turned around backwards either.
Yeah.
And the only way I can put this to you, when he screamed, when he let out that, it sounded like it went on for 45 seconds. So they must have lung capacity beyond what we can fathom.
Yeah. You hear that a lot.
The way I describe it, if you put your head in a mailbox and hit an air horn,
oh, God.
That's how loud this thing was. And he was mad. I'm just mad. I don't know what I caught him doing. I don't know if I caught him sleeping. I don't know if I caught him getting busy with his partner. But he was mad. And he let me know it.
Wow. You're just lucky that your horse is so calm and it didn't bolt and drop you on your head.
I'm not saying he stood there like he was wearing and stuff like that, but I had him, and I put my foot in the stirrup, threw my left foot over it, and that was it. I'm not saying that. I think if this thing chose to have chased me, it would definitely call me.
Yeah. Well, how close were you? It sounds like you were really damn close to him.
20 feet.
Oh, God. Way too close.
Hey, Donnie, did it notice that you had a sidearm on you, like when you went to put your hand on it?
That's when it screamed.
That's when it screamed. Okay, so you put your hand on your sidearm and it went ballistic.
It hit another gear. That's the way I can talk about it. It just hit another gear. It went from being mad to really mad.
Okay.
Wow.
And, I can understand them understanding what a long gun is, like a rifle or something like that. But they know what a pistol is, too. Don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that.
One thing a lot of people don't think about is that they have this concept that if we're carrying something mechanical, potentially it's a weapon. And they do know what rifles and pistols look like. But
Right.
I think they also think that things like cameras and stuff might potentially be weapons.
Exactly. You just took the word out of my mouth. You just took the word out of my mouth.
Had that happen to me last summer. He was just sitting there not really giving a shit that I was nearby. And as soon as I reached for my camera, he gave me this angry glare. And I went, man, this guy's like 40 feet from me. if he decides to jump up and come running over here, I'm toast. I'm just going to put that camera right back and keep walking and act like I didn't see anything.
Well, that's probably the best thing you could have done, really. Like I say, I was going to tell you all about this picture, and we changed the subject. We have in a tree down there, we have an old bicycle frame from probably the 40s to the 50s. It's probably 30 feet up in a tree. How the hell? Who does that?
Yeah. Yeah, kids aren't going to throw their bicycle 30 feet up in a tree, and what other animal would do it?
You know, I'm sure the wind didn't do it. And why they would do that, you know, why they would do something like that, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the juveniles, just like, you know, our kids, you know, they're bored. They don't have nothing to do. And, you know, especially when a human comes in the woods, I mean, oh boy, here's a whole bunch of entertainment now.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I wonder how often people get escorted out of the woods, and it's partially because you're in their territory, but also partially because they're bored, and they just enjoy scaring the crap out of somebody.
I was escorted out of that swamp, and I was, like I started telling you, you know, you have the Class A sightings and the B sightings. I was just catching things out of my corner of my eye, and I can hear it, and I can tell you there's two of them.
Oh, God.
And they escorted, and there was no three-wheelers, nothing like that. You walked in and you walked out.
Right.
And it was a good 2 miles back to where the truck was. So you're talking an hour walk.
Yeah.
And that day, you know,
that's just incredibly frightening when you're on foot and you're out in the middle of nowhere by yourself and you run into one of these things. Man, the ball is totally in their court. If they want to screw you over, you're just toast. There's not much you can do about it.
And I was deer hunting. You know, it was November, and you know, down in Virginia, you can't use a rifle. You know, you use a shotgun. And I had a Remington 1100 shotgun, and I do believe that, you know, they were watching me. I think they knew I was armed. But they, you know, I could hear them, and call me crazy. I don't care. You know, I knew they were there. I know they were there anyway. And you know, we're cheap entertainment. Can you imagine how clumsy we look walking through the woods? And here comes this thing.
Yeah, noisy, clumsy, obvious, bright colors. It's like we're wearing a friggin' neon sign that says, "Hey, Bigfoot, here I am." And then people wonder why we don't see him.
But, you know, I think you're definitely right on that, you know, that night vision thing. If they ever figure that out, we're in trouble. But we also had an incident, and this was on the other side of the property.
We lose him again?
I killed this decent buck deer, and it was a decent-sized deer, and it took me a good hour to drag it to the dirt road. And I had gutted it and all that, so I knew it was dead. And so it took me an hour or so to drag it to the edge of the road, dirt road. And I only had to walk like 15 minutes up this dirt road to get my truck. Come back, the deer was gone. I mean, gone. We don't have no predators or anything that could drag a deer away.
Right.
We have no bears, no cougars, nothing like that.
And you could see, you had marked this location on the side of the road too, right?
Pardon me?
I said you had actually marked its location on the side of the road so you could find it again when you got back with your truck, right?
Oh yeah, I took a little stick and I stuck it in the edge of the dirt road. You know, so I knew where to go. Which, you know, I knew where to go anyway. But then, regardless, I went back. You could see where the deer had laid there for a couple minutes. And we had a lot of pines down there. And you could run and you could be walking pine, and boom, you get all hardwoods. But this just happened to be in the pines. And you couldn't see any defined footprints or anything, but you could see depressions where something was. And it, you know, it picked my deer up, took my deer. I mean,
to them, it's finders keepers.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that, I hear a lot of people saying, man, Bigfoot, they're thieves, stealing all the sweet feed. No, they're not. They're an opportunist. They're an animal. If you're foolish enough to leave it where they can get it, they're going to take it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we had, sweet feed missing, and that's just a whole other story. We would had this big lead weight that we would put on top of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
No coon's going to get in it. It's nothing like that.
Right.
And you could see with something that just scooped it out. But the top would be back on it, and the weight would be back on it. They would put it back together. It's not like they would leave a mess. And you pick up on it. And it's not like we had 20 whole horses or anything like that, or to feed. But we knew what we had.
Mm-hmm.
And when you latched the barn door shut, you did it.
Right.
And come back and it's open. And if a man was to have went in there and done that, if he's going to break into their barn, he's going to generally steal something worth stealing. But nothing of any monetary value would ever be missing.
Right.
It would just be the food. The sweet feed would be gone. So we had one time up in the loft, we stored hay. You store the hay and get it all up in there, and you don't mess around up there. It stays up there for a while. And went up there one time, and I thought we had some hobos living up there. It's like, I don't know what they were doing. Maybe, I guess they were sleeping up there. I don't know. It's not like we lived there 24/7.
Right.
We had a house that was, I guess, 5 miles, 6 miles from the property. And there's so much that we need to learn on these things. I'm by no means an expert on these things. I don't go out looking for them. And, when I'm in the woods, I keep my head on a swivel. I don't care what woods I'm in, because, they can be living, they're living on golf courses right next to people, $2 million homes, and they don't even realize it. These things are right underneath of our noses.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people are under the impression that you have to go way, way, way out into the woods to find these things, and they're opportunists. If they can sneak in and out of a residential area and raid the garbage cans without people seeing them doing it, they're going to do it. That's a ready food supply right there. Woo-hoo. Yum, yum.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And, we've also seen, this is another thing that we've also seen, we've had people down on the property kill deer that have had a back leg that's been twisted all up. And it doesn't look like I've never seen a deer with a broken leg. I've never seen that. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but something snatched that deer, and the deer ended up getting away. Is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
One time we found a dog, stuffed into the Y of a tree. And that dog wasn't just placed there. It was stuffed in that tree. it was bad.
Stuffed.
It was stuffed in there hard.
Yeah.
And
it was crammed in there like something put it there.
Right. Let me tell you all something. When you're walking through the woods, you're not thinking about things like that. You're worried about getting to your deer stand and setting up and getting ready. And you run across a site like that. That is a creepy sight. That is a creepy sight. And it's very good. It'll make you hold on to that shotgun a little tighter.
Especially if you don't know what did it or what might potentially be around the area.
Like I say, I don't know what it would take to bring one of these critters down, but I would not. I don't want to get into a Mexican standoff with one.
Yeah.
Especially if you got
one. They're tough.
That one I see. That dude. He was. I'm not lying to y'all. He was breaking tree limbs 4 inches in diameter, like they were toothpaste.
Well, I'll tell you, Donnie, I got to ask you a question here, because if I don't, everybody that listens to the show is going to be riding me for the next week, yelling at me because I didn't. But you got that nice close look at him when he came out of that thicket and yelled at you, and you were jumping on the horse. What did his face look like? Did you get a very good look at his face?
At first, I guess you want to call it a poker face. Not a lot of expression in his face, but he was mad when he came out of there. When we kind of locked eyes, and I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but it's natural for you to look at somebody's face. It's just something that we do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
People say these things don't have a neck. I do believe they have a neck, but I think that their trapezoid muscles are just so enormous that it hides it. But
yeah.
And
I know from over your side of the country, you get names like no necks, and there's also no heads. They call them over in another part of the country. You see them walking past, and they got their back to you. You basically only see like a little bulge where their head should be.
Yeah, this dude, he probably had I'm going to guess like a 40-inch waist maybe. But from there up, it just went, into a V, like straight wide. Like his shoulders had to be 4 feet wide.
Good God. So how would you characterize the face? Would you say it looked? Would you say the face looked more like would you say the face looked more like an ape or more like a human, or I guess I'm trying to get some detail on what the face itself looked like. I know they're expressive. Did he have a nose like a human? Did he have a nose like an ape? That sort of thing.
He had like I say, like pencil thin lips, but they were really the mouth was really, really wide, like really wide, almost like you could stuff a grapefruit straight into it.
Oh God.
It had canines, but they weren't long canines. But they were very visible when he screamed.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that, and apparently he'd be going to the Bigfoot dentist because he had beautiful teeth. And they were nice and white. Mm-hmm. They weren't yellow, all stained up or anything, but he did have.
So did you say his teeth were sort of along the lines of what a gorilla would have or something, where it's mostly flat teeth, but they got canines too?
This thing looked more human than it did gorilla.
Okay.
I think that's what. If it had to look like a gorilla or something really, really scary, I probably would have shot him. But it looks so damn human.
Okay.
And
so it did sort of have a human-looking nose on it, probably then.
It had a hooded nose. Coal black eyes. I mean, I didn't see any white in the eyes at all. I don't know if that's a normal thing. I don't know if people.
Yeah, it is. If you get direct sunlight on their face, sometimes you can tell the whites of their eyes are sort of an amber color. But usually when people see them, it just looks black, and that's pretty much all they see.
Yeah, they were coal black. But at first, Duke, he had a poker face, almost looking at me in disgust. Maybe one of your parents who looked at you like you did something really stupid, and it was stupid. And they just look at you for a minute with that look on their face. And then when I put my hand on that pistol, that dude caught another deer. I don't know where he come from with that, but that will scare the Jesus out of you. And I think I had it known now that he was popping his teeth at me. The expression you get weak in the knees is a true expression. You get so frightened. And I'm not scared to say this, man. I was scared. I was scared shitless. And I was probably, 19 years old. I mean, I was old enough, but still. And even though I knew they were there, I had never had, that kind of encounter. Never. And
well, yeah, you don't expect to see one at that range either. That's really close. He must have been seriously pissed off at you. Because it sounds like he tried to make you aware that he was there.
Maybe he was sleeping, and I think that this dude was a young alpha. Maybe like he had just taken over from the older alpha or whatever. Whoever he was the boss of that area. And he was my boss that day. And
would have been my boss too, brother. I would have been getting the hell out of there.
What gets me more than anything, dude, is people try to pacify these animals. And they're nothing to be messed with. If you want to go out and research them and all that, that's cool. But make sure, that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think one of the
be careful,
best
be
weapons,
safe, don't provoke them.
One of the best weapons you can have, day or night, I think, is a bright light on you. Have a bright light.
Yep.
And to this, right now, I'm sitting on my steps right now. I got this little flashlight on. It takes 3 of those CR123 batteries, and it's bright. Damn, that thing's bright. And
yep.
Yeah,
and they don't like having the bright light flashed in their eyes at night because that ruins their night vision. It makes them pretty mad when you do that. So, yeah, if they see that you've got some kind of a bright light or something, generally they'll stay a little bit further away.
I had an incident up in Bedford County, Pennsylvania. I have a cousin that lives up there on top of the mountain, and we don't know if this is a Bigfoot or not. But he lives in the middle of nowhere, too. He lives up on top of the mountain in a trailer. And there was 3 of us in the trailer. We were watching, I think, one of the 3 channels we could pick up. And something hit the trailer so hard that it actually moved it. You know how those trailers are set up on blocks?
Yep.
It moved it. And it actually moved it. And, we didn't know what it was. We were kids, it scared the hell out of us. It was just, you're watching TV and all of a sudden, bang! What in the hell was that? No, you go look. I'm not going to go look. You go look. Hell no, I'm not looking. And, when my cousin had got that, he said, bear probably ran into the trailer. Bears don't run in the trailer that hard.
No.
And, I've heard...
Why would a bear hit your trailer house,
I've heard of these, people talk about these things slap on the side of houses or whatever. This was more than a slap. I don't know what happened, why it was going on. It was just something that happened. I can't prove that it was a booger. But something hit that house hard. Very hard. And
yeah, those trailer houses aren't light. Something that could shake that's a big impact.
And another thing that gets me, I hope that anybody who's listening to this, please heed my advice. Don't feed these dudes. They're plenty capable of feeding themselves without your help.
Yep.
And you think that, you're being nice. Oh, the poor Bigfoot, he must be hungry. No, it don't work like that. They eat things that, we can't imagine. I've seen, I don't know what kind of tree it is, but, you always see a bunch of sap on the side of these trees. God, the name of this tree is, I know the name of the tree, I just can't remember it. But I've seen that sap, like them big chunks of sap, picked clean off those trees. Peach trees, apple trees that are growing wild. I've seen them things picked clean, and picked clean way up high. Where you and I would need a little step ladder to get to it. And
right.
When people go looking for these things, they want to make a one-night outing. That don't work too much. The best thing you can do, I think, is if you want to have an encounter, you got to spend 3 or 4 days, and they'll come to you if they're in the area. They will come check you out. They will come check you out, and there's things.
And you're.
Pardon me?
You're absolutely right about that, Donnie, because I've talked to other researchers about that, and we all have the same opinion that really you need to be in the same spot for 3 or 4 days and let them get a little chance to sort of recon you, and then they'll come over and they'll get close enough to take a look. And that's your best chance to have them nearby.
What I had found out, and this wasn't out researching, this was just out on the property. I would stay out there, me, my dad, and a couple other guys, the whole first week of deer season. We would stay there. And they might come around the first night or whatever. But what really gets their goat is, you'll be sitting around or whatever, and I think they do things intentionally to try to get your attention. And if you know they're doing that, and you don't acknowledge it, I think they get frustrated and they come in a little closer and
they ramp it up. They're trying to get your attention to scare you away.
Make a little more noise or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Or throw a bigger log or there's some guys that actually try and do that to them, try and ignore them as much as you can because they'll get more and more frustrated, louder and louder and closer, and that's when you got a good chance of getting a sighting. After that encounter I had, it's not that I don't want to see him. It hasn't changed me hunting or anything. But that was way too close. I would much rather see, one in the distance, and I can wave to him and he can wave to me, and we can keep it like that. But I don't need no Tasmanian devil, tearing the woods up, coming out and. I'm serious. If you put your head into a mailbox and then pull the string on an air horn, that's how loud that damn thing was. And it could hit different notes simultaneously. It was almost like it had 3 sets of vocal cords. It was hitting one note and hitting the other note at the same time. Like it can sing its own harmony, basically.
Yeah, it didn't need a band. It could do all of it itself. And
right,
I've heard the whoops, and I've heard the I call it the little 2-syllable sound that they make. I'm not going to try to do it because I'll make a fool out of my damn self. Trying to sound like one, but I can't do it right. But they can hit a little. It's like I call it a little 2-syllable, where it starts off at a little lower, like a whoop kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
But much louder and quite different than what I just did. I apologize for making a fool of myself.
No problem.
But,
you didn't make a fool of yourself. People want to have an idea what it is you're talking about, and that was a good idea. Let them know.
Well, they want my opinion on what I'm talking about. My personal opinion, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I think it's a primitive human. I really do. I concur with people that it is a primitive human. This thing is too damn smart to be anything but.
Yeah.
Well,
as far as that goes, even if it was a great ape, they'd be too damn smart for us to find them anyway. I don't know if you ever heard about it when they had I'm not sure which one it was. It was the one famous woman that does all the research on chimps. And she was in an area where they told her that there was a troop of chimps living, and you should go check these guys out. We see them all the time. But she was in this area for a week and saw absolutely no signs of them. None.
Right.
And she went back, and they said, no, they're there. And sure enough, she went back, and this next time she was back there, she actually found signs of them. These are just chimpanzees. And there's a whole troop of them living in this area, and they're still sneaky enough that she couldn't find any damn signs of them being in there for a week. Well, something that's even smarter than that, like a Bigfoot, what do you think your chances are of finding one of those things? Really none.
Yeah,
that's why I laugh at finding Bigfoot. That's such a joke. They're not going to find Bigfoot ever. You can't find Bigfoot. You may be able to get Bigfoot to find you, but you're not going to go find Bigfoot.
I think that, from the time you pull up in your vehicle, they know you're there. So there's no sneaking up on one unless you catch one snoozing or something like that.
Right.
I think me coming in on horseback that day, it may have heard something walking, but it heard something that was quadrupedally walking. It didn't hear a human.
Yep.
And when I got down off the horse, and like I said, I only got maybe 5 yards into the brush area, and I guess he had an old shit moment. I'm sorry, one of those moments.
Yep.
And he didn't like it.
No kidding.
But
that all makes good sense,
I've had other, sightings that really aren't worth really talking about, where they're just glimpses of something. But, I know what they are, but they're just a glimpse. But, another thing, I don't know if anybody else has thought about this, but if their face is covered up, if they try to hide their face, for some reason they think their whole body's covered. It's weird. You might have one sitting there.
It's the peekaboo thing. Oh, and I can't see you, therefore you can't see branches.
Me. But you can see his knees and his feet perfectly. It's I don't know. It's just something that I would walk down through the woods, and I would take my hunting knife, and there's little 2 or 3 foot tall cedar trees, little baby cedar trees. I would just bend them over and cut them, and I might grab 9 or 10 of them on the way to my deer stand if I'm going to hunt on the ground.
Right.
And I would stick these cedar trees, stick them in the ground all around me to break up my silhouette.
Right.
And I would be on property sometimes that there was other hunters. And even on the ground, I'd have guys walk 30 yards from me, which would really make me mad that they were walking through the place I'm hunting, but I wouldn't say a word. And I would sit there, still as a rock. And they'd walk right by me, never see me. Now, if I can do that, these guys got wood skills that we can't fathom. And
that's true. They've been out there their whole lives. They have plenty of time to work on it.
And I think if more people would listen to the First Nations people, I don't use the word Indian, I use the word First Nations people. If more people would listen to what they're saying, it's not all fairy tales.
Nope.
There's a lot to be learned from the First Nations people, and there's also a lot of things in the woods that people just don't want to accept. Because if somebody came on TV tonight and they said that they were going to acknowledge the fact that we have a bipedal hominid with human DNA, it would turn the logging industry upside down. You would have people without jobs. You would have people laying in front of bulldozers. And then,
the recreational industry, there'd be a lot of folks that wouldn't want to go out camping and stuff anymore if they knew these things were real and were out in the woods. They'd be just so freaked out by it, they wouldn't even want to go out there.
Yeah, and people, they just don't want to accept the fact that,
as dominant as man thinks he is, that when he steps into those woods, he's no longer the dominant creature. You know, he falls down a notch or two on the food chain. And there's things in the woods that, you know, make a Bigfoot experience seem like a day at Disneyland.
And you know, that's the one thing that I'd like you to talk about next, Donnie, is as everybody out there is not yet aware, you didn't just have Bigfoot around that area you grew up. You had something else.
Well, I had that experience up here in Maryland. And
okay, so that was further away. Well, yeah, can you tell everybody about that when you were out fishing and what you ran into?
Yeah, I'll tell it. I just don't. It's almost like I relive it when I tell it. This was in September of 2001. It was myself, a police officer friend of mine, and we had another good friend that we went to school with that he couldn't hear and he couldn't speak. Mm-hmm. But you know, he's one of the best dudes I ever knew, and he would do anything for you. And this little area is quite a large piece of land, and it's in between Fort Meade Army Base, NSA property, and the Maryland Patuxent Research Center, which you're not allowed on any of that property. And
right, and no doubt they've got gigantic chunks of land there.
Oh my, yes, enormous. You know, I mean, if you could see the amount of land that NSA's got fenced off, you know, and that's just NSA. And you know, Fort Meade pretty much, it's fenced off to a point, but anyway, this river that I used to fish all the time, all the time. I'll start with one incident, and then I'll go to what happened the second time. One time I went by myself, and you know, I get in the water, and I wade in this little river, and it's great smallmouth fishing, great smallmouth bass fishing. And I had my dog Obi with me. And normally, when you open that truck door, he'll dart out of that door. He's just happy. You know, he's happy to be outside. He wouldn't get out of the truck. And I'm trying to tell him, come on, he would not get out of the truck. And, you know, I wasn't putting two and two together, dude. I really wasn't. I wasn't thinking no Bigfoot up, you know, nothing like that. So I said, if you want to stay in the truck, fine. You know, it was a cool day. And, you know, I was only going to fish for an hour or so. And so I rolled the windows halfway down, and I fished. Nothing, and came back to the truck and went home. Well, I'd made plans to go with my other friends, and off we went. And when you get down into this river, if you go right, there's actually a fence that goes across the river. I mean, you can walk under it because you're in the water, but it still goes across the river. And if the water is high enough, it's touching the bottom of that fence. And if you go that way, you're on Fort Meade property. Well, of course, that's where the best fishing is. Nobody ever goes there, so that's where we went. And at the widest point, this river was, some people call it a creek, whatever. Where I'm from, it's a branch or it's a river. You know, people call it a stream. I call it a branch. You know, a river to me, if it's 20 feet wide and it's flowing, it's a river. And, you know, we got in there, and, you know, we used to always be as quiet as we could be. You know, not that we were sneaking up on anything. We were just trying to, you would see so much wildlife. So much wildlife. And, like, I used to always be amazed with raccoons. I would love to watch raccoons at the edge of the river, flipping over rocks, catching crayfish and things like that. Well, anyway, we were fishing, and we were catching fish, and we don't really talk back and forth. Like I said, we try to be quiet. And there was a sandbar where the water had gotten a little low in the middle of the river. And the sandbar was maybe 2 feet wide, 10 feet long. And
going in, we saw one track. And it was a canine track, but it was elongated. It was really weird looking. You know, we kind of looked at it and, okay, that's neat. And we went on about our business. And we fished a little bit, and we got to a point in the river where the river, it was actually a sharper turn than 90 degrees. It's almost like a U-turn.
Right.
And we made that U-turn, and let me make this clear. When you're in this river, there's nowhere to go because you got 6-foot banks on each side of you that are vertical, and they're that nasty clay. You know, that real slippery clay. There's no way you could climb up that. Well,
right.
where this river made this U-turn, there was a little, I'll say stream so people know what I'm talking about, a little tiny stream that was coming in to the river like a tributary. And the deaf boy froze in his tracks, and we kind of looked at him like, what's wrong with him? And, you know, he was just staring, so we looked where he was staring, and I don't want to use the word, we saw it from behind first, you know, kind of crouched over. Didn't know what the hell it was. I mean, it looked like I didn't know if it was a bear. I didn't know if it was an enormous dog. Didn't know what we were looking at. And once it realized he was there, and it turned around and looked at it, and then it stood up.
Oh, Jesus.
I told everybody, I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say this, I pissed my pants. And as I'm telling you this now, I mean, as I'm telling you this now, I'm shaking. So
take your time.
We were all armed because we had some coyotes that weren't afraid of us. You know,
right?
Not that I'm scared of a 40-pound dog, but I don't want to get bit by one either. So my police friend, he had his service weapon. The pistol I carried a 10mm with me, and the deaf boy, his name was Bones. I think he carried a .357 or a .38 special or something. Anyway, we realized this thing had killed a deer, and it was holding the head of this deer under the water, which I think by the time we got there, it was already dead. And, you know, when I tell this story, you know, I'm scared that the people with the white coats are going to come and pick me up and say, okay, come with us, you know, a little bit.
That's why most people don't tell these stories, Donnie.
Well, it took me 14 years, you know, and I talked to Vic Cundiff about it. He helped me out quite a bit. You know, I didn't know what we saw. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what we were looking at. And when this thing turned, if you can imagine, if you're on your hands and knees and you're holding something under the water and something catches your attention from behind, this thing had turned around, looked at us, but it took its right foot and was still holding that deer's head under the water. And then it you know, I don't know nothing. I've been researching Dogman ever since that happened. I want to know what happened. I want to know what I was looking at. And this thing, the head looked like it was a cross between a German Shepherd, a hyena, and a baboon. It was a nasty-looking critter. And, you know, there's times, Duke, that I thought, you know, maybe that I had walked up to the gates of hell. I was really that unsure of what we saw. And then this thing makes this little, like, 10-foot bluff charge. And we're standing in water. We're standing in water waist deep. We're not going to run nowhere.
Man. Yeah, you couldn't at that point.
Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? And, yeah, I am so glad I don't think I could have reached for my pistol if I wanted to. I mean, we were frozen in the water. We were statues in the water. And this thing never really vocalized, but it had like a guttural growl that felt like your organs were being pulverized. It was a weird feeling. You could feel it reverberate through your body. And, you know, this is spooky, man. This thing made eye contact with each one of us. It's like it looked at me, it looked at my police officer friend, and then it looked at the other guy. I mean, one by one, it just like looked at us. You know, there was no mind speaking going on, no telepathy or anything like that, no UFOs, no teleports, no portals, no nothing like that.
But he was giving you the angry glare.
When it made its little bluff charge, I mean, it was actually splashing in the water, so I knew it was something real. And I think it knew. This thing was evil. I mean, that's the feeling we all got. That, I mean, it was just evil, like it was soul-sucking. I can't explain it. This is not something you want to mess with. This is not something that you want to give a hug to. Pretty big creature.
You can't flip a dog bone and play pinochle with him or something?
Pardon me?
No way. I said it's not the kind of critter you could flip a dog bone and maybe play pinochle with him or something.
Oh, no, I think if you threw a dog bone, he'd probably pick it up and throw it back at you and say, no, I'm going to eat you. But it had a...
Right on.
Its muzzle it had a very wide muzzle, maybe as long as a German Shepherd's, maybe not quite that long. 20 years on top. The head looked way too big for the body. It was almost like it couldn't stand up straight. It did have the dog legs. It didn't have the regular legs like a booger has. It had the hocks and all that. And
right.
for
so
people
this wasn't a misidentified Gugly or something. You saw a Dogman.
No. Yeah, and let me put this out there. People say, oh, a wolf or a dog can stand up on its legs and it can walk 10 or 12 steps and then it's got to break back down. But when a dog does that, that dog stands pretty much straight up. He's standing straight.
Yeah.
This dude didn't do that. He was more hunched over. And a friend of mine has this biomechanics software. And we made this little thing. And if you got the haunches like a dog has, and you keep the spine at 72 degrees or less, if you try to go up straight vertical, it doesn't work. But if you go at 72 degrees and down, it works. This dude can move. It can move. On the computer, it can move. And it can move in real life, too. I'm telling you that. And, on my mother's grave, and this thing, after it made us, it made us all have a charming moment, this thing didn't have paws. They were more like hands. And
again, that's one of the things that distinguishes most of these Dogman sightings, that they don't have front paws. They've got what looks similar to human hands with claws on them.
Yes, they do. And the claws, I'm going to estimate, were maybe 1.25 inches long.
Yike.
This thing was black and gray. It didn't look nothing like a booger as far, it didn't look well kept at all. It was a nasty looking thing. And after it was done...
Jeez, what did it do after it plus charged you then?
I was just getting ready to tell you.
It turned around, it bipedally grabbed a deer and just drug it off. And please don't send any white coats my way. I know what we saw. To this day, I'm still good friends with a police officer friend. If you try to talk about it with him, he'll change the subject. Of course, the other guy, he can't speak or hear, and I can sign a little bit, but it freaked him out too. And it freaked me out too for the longest time. And, Dogman are people will think, oh my God, you're crazy, man. Dogman, really? I don't know what they are, I don't know where they come from, but I think they're indigenous to this planet. Again, the First Nations people talk about them all the time. I didn't know any of this before I had it. I didn't know what I saw. I really didn't. I can tell you that was the longest 3/4 of a mile to a mile back to the truck.
Oh, God.
So
I can only imagine.
You're trying to walk through
You're
the water.
so lucky you had people with you. Can you imagine what it would have been like?
I've had that discussion before if it hadn't been a single person. Because, again, the deaf boy, Bones, I don't know how deaf people perceive things, but it's like they have a different sense about things. He starts looking over his right shoulder, like up on the bank. So we did too, and we never saw anything, but we heard it. This dude was not alone. We never saw anything, but he was not alone. And when we were beating feet back to the truck, and of course we went right past that same sandbar, and there was another track. There was another track in it. So something had crossed behind us when we went past.
Wow.
And you could see, and it's, at this point, this river was probably 30 feet wide or so. You could see where it hit the middle, and hit the sandbar, and then you could see his other foot where it hit halfway up on a 6-foot vertical embankment. You could see where the foot just dug in and pushed off. It cleared that in like 2 steps. And, I don't like to share that story too much because, people say, okay, he saw Bigfoot, and we might believe a little bit of what he's talking about that. But then you start talking about Dogman, and it's like your credibility goes down the toilet. But I don't care because I know what I saw. I know what we saw. When we got back
at close range.
When we got back to the truck, only one of us had a fishing pole. I don't know what happened to mine. I don't. And and we used to wear like softball or soccer cleats when we would wade in the river because it was slippery. And where the bridge was where we parked the truck, it was a pretty steep embankment, and this place always stayed wet. It was like a marsh area. When you went in there, it looked like it was an area that if you saw a pterodactyl, you wouldn't be surprised. That's how primitive this place was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, man.
It was like the sunlight never hit the ground. The canopy was that thick. But, I think we set a record when we got back under that fence. You had to put your head under the water to get, back under the fence. But when we hit that embankment up to the truck, this was a brand new truck. And, we have a brand new vehicle. You try to take care of it. You don't want to get mud inside of it and things like that.
Yeah.
My 2 friends, they jumped in the bed of the truck. I got in the truck, wet, nasty, muddy, with pee in my pants and everything else. And, we got the hell out of Dodge. And, but you said something, what if we were alone? If somebody was alone? I'm positive that, these things have hurt people. I'm not saying that they hunt people, but I'm sure there's things that have happened, Bigfoot's no saint neither. Especially the Bigfoot in the
southeast part of the country, it's almost like they're born with an attitude. I don't know the difference between like a Bigfoot on the East Coast and the West Coast, but it seems like the ones on the West Coast are more of a little more passive. Not that they won't, you know, if they had to, you know, they could ruin your day. But it's like the ones from, like, I'm going to say from Ohio, Kentucky area, you know, down to Louisiana and Georgia and all that. It's just like they're born with a bad attitude. I don't know what that is, you know.
I think some of it might just be historical, because if you go back and look at the accounts from the First Nation people, there are actually some protracted battles going on between some of these tribes, and they're not human neighbors that were living nearby. They were not getting along. And you don't see a whole lot of that up in the Pacific Northwest.
There was, I don't know the name of this girl, I don't know the name of the book, so I shouldn't bring it up, but I'll bring it up anyway. She was a squaw for, I don't know what tribe she belonged to, but she actually had a book written about a war that went on with these Dogmen. And the Indians knew where they were, and it was kind of like a large opening to a cave, and as bad as the blood was between these guys, you know, the Indians were trying to give them a chance, even though they were dogmen, or whatever you want to call them, man dog, or Lucifalea, whatever you want to call them. They filled that entire mouth of that cave, and they just burned it. And you know, the people. Another thing people don't realize is the cave systems in the southeast part of the country. I mean, there's caves that go all the way through Kentucky, up into Tennessee, Arkansas. I mean, if a creature could see, and he knows he could get around unseen, no problems, at all.
Well, yeah, you got the whole Mammoth Cave system and everything down there. That's gigantic. It's not even mapped, and they haven't even mapped all of it.
No, it's not. And you know, again, people always try to humanize things, and we're naturally not nocturnal. So,
right.
A lot of the sightings that I think are on the increase is, you know, we in the 50s and the 60s. Most of your jobs, people work, you know, 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, or a 9 to 5 job. But now we're a 24/7 country now, and people are on the roads more. You know, there's night shift people, so much more night shift working on, and people are out. Then your land is being taken away, and you're forcing these creatures to move. You're forcing the food supply to move, and you're putting. I think you're putting them more in one area, and you know, maybe that's. I don't know if that's what the increase in the sightings. You know,
I think it would. If you got more people out driving around at night, that's when they move around a lot, and it just kind of makes sense. They see more.
Hey, Donnie, I have a question for you. If
sure.
As far as so you said earlier that like the boogers, they have like facial expressions.
Yes, sir.
That Dogman, did it have any facial expressions, or was it more like when you see a dog that's did it give any expression or anything like that, or was it just strictly dog-like?
Well, when it made its little bluff charge, it made its ears back, and you know how a dog's muzzle will kind of snarl up, and you can like, see its canines. It did that.
Okay,
I could see the nose. You know how if you look at a dog and it breathes, you can actually see the nose move in and out a little bit, like a little, I don't know what that piece of the nose is called. I could see that moving.
Wow.
I'm not saying it was grimacing at me. It was, like I say, the only vocalization it made was that deep, low. You could almost couldn't hear it, but you could feel it.
Right.
You know, and it's just you talk about Dogman and you talk about Bigfoot. That's like it's almost like the difference between golf and rugby. You know, they're each difficult, and they're just so different. You know, like the saying goes, you know, that's a completely different animal. Well, it is. And I'm not saying, you know, they say, I don't know how much of this I buy into. They say there's 7 types. You know, like they talk about dog-faced boogers. Like, okay, you know, it walks like a booger, but it's got a snout. You know, that picture, what is that picture? The Beast of 7 Shoots. I mean, I don't know what you would classify that one as.
It's a gugly. I know a person that actually had to investigate that incident, and they're about 99% sure it wasn't a Dogman. It was actually a gugly.
Yeah, I don't think that was a Dogman.
There are people that saw it. The thing that it was carrying under its arm was a poodle. The people that lost the poodle saw it pick up the poodle and walk off with it. So they got a real good look at it.
Yeah.
So the best way sorry for interrupting, the best way to describe this Dogman would be like what I'm almost envisioning, almost like a werewolf, essentially. Is that kind of how you would put it?
You could call it like that, but I've never seen one in the movies that look like it. I mean, people try to compare it to give people an idea. Like people always say the Underworld movie. Well, I've never seen the Underworld movie, so I don't know what they look like in that movie.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, the one that I've heard over and over, Donnie, is people that have cited it and got a good look at it say that the closest analog that they've seen in a movie is the movie Dog Soldiers, which is a British horror movie, and it has werewolves in it. And they said the werewolves in that one are pretty much just exactly what the Dogman they saw look like.
Yeah, this thing had a if you want to call it a mane that ran down between like its shoulder blades. It wasn't thick like a lion's mane or anything like that, but it was pronounced. It had a tail. It was a genetic train wreck.
Right.
I don't know how else to put it. I mean,
well, I find it personally incredibly interesting that you saw this sitting right next to a big chunk of land owned by the NSA.
Well, I don't want to get in. I've talked to a few people. I've done a little snooping and looked around, and I've actually went out there at night. I do have a pair of Gen 3 goggles. I also got a thermal imaging camera. I got from a fireman that was broke. They were going to throw it away. Come to find out, the only thing wrong with it was the ground wire inside of it was off. So I just resoldered it back on, and it works fine.
Nice.
And they're expensive. But anyway, I snuck onto that property many nights. And there's things that go on there like, I feel like I'm incriminating myself here. They're patrolling.
Well, you don't have to talk about it anymore.
It's like they're out there patrolling nothing.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you one more thing. I recently did a little snooping at night. I was checking on something that I had seen over there. I had found 2 large bends in the ground. Enormous. I mean, like you could put 3 or 4 men into each one. They didn't look like they had been used recently, but, you know, they were there. And if you didn't walk right on top of them, you never would have seen them. Well, I recently got a trespassing ticket. I got snagged by the man, and coming out of the woods. I mean, I seen him at the street when I was coming out. He was sitting. He was parked behind the truck. And I was like, here we go. So I'm thinking of what lie I can tell this guy. Why I am on this property. And when I come up to the truck, and he said, hey, how you doing? And I said, I'm fine, sir. How are you? And he said, well, I'm fine. He said, and I don't know why I said this. He said, can I ask you what you're doing? I said, I'm looking for something. This man looked at me with a straight face. I swear to God, looked at me with a straight face and said, oh, you've seen it.
Huh.
He knew what I was talking about, and I didn't even tell him.
Right.
And, he gave me a reaming. He gave me a nice little ticket to go with the reaming. But after that, he was a pretty cool guy, but he was very tight-lipped, He was like, the only thing you need to know, because I was trying to ask him some questions, and the only thing you need to know is to leave him alone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into this too much because it seems Dogman have a thing for throwing dead animals at people inside his houses and things like that. What's that about? I don't know what that means.
Honestly, I'm not sure about that one either. I'm not a Dogman guy, but if I'm talking to somebody that's had Bigfoot sightings and they've had a Dogman sighting, I'm interested in hearing that too. And if Dogman is throwing things at you, I'm interested in hearing that too. Did you get something thrown at you?
I told you about that.
Well, tell everybody else.
I don't know if I want to get into that. I really don't.
No, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about.
That's when I found out that dogmen, they can't stand a dog whistle just like a regular dog. I'll put it to you that way. In my little kit that I carried with me, I went out for a couple of nights, and I was just sitting there up next to this oak tree had to be 4 feet wide, I'm sitting at the base of this oak tree, and there's no sense in trying to camouflage yourself too much because I know they can see in the dark. I know, I don't know if there's any boogers over there or not. I'm sure there probably is. They seem to be everywhere. But I was hearing shit everywhere. Not loud, but I could tell it was bipedal, and then it would sound like it was, it was quiet. It was really strange. Really strange. And when this comes across my lips in 30 seconds here in a minute, y'all just might hang the phone up, write me off as a complete nut. But
I doubt it.
This is true. This happened. I'm sitting up next to this tree. I got these goggles on. I'm trying to look around, and it's not like you can see with your regular eyes. You're looking through this damn hole. And
right.
It was just like out of the blue. They got that close to me without me hearing them. And then out of the blue, it was like a ruckus, like a couple football players, a bulldozer, Tasmanian devil, what do you want to call it, for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and I hear this like a thud. And, I hit that whistle. When I hit that whistle, I had coyotes and everything going nuts when I hit that whistle.
Wow.
And I took those goggles off, and that's when I, reached to my flashlight, and I had a marine flare with me too. You know what I'm talking about? Those marine flares. I cracked that. I don't think they like that, and I've told people that, whether they believe me or not. But anyway, I had a very small dead deer 10 feet in front of me, laying on the ground.
Wow.
And
did you get a chance to look at it? How did it be killed?
It looked like the neck was broke, to be honest with you, because it was flipped around like what's that movie, Exorcist style, It
right.
Flipped around that one. But I actually saw those 2 dogmen too, and they were nothing like the first one I saw.
Nothing. They were scrawny.
What did these ones look like?
This was dark, so I didn't get a super good look, but they were scrawny, maybe 5 foot tall, 150, 160 pounds. Stinky. I did smell them. They were stinky. Kind of a smell between sulfur and rotten eggs or something. They really smell bad. I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. I didn't know what.
My God, you're out there by yourself in the dark. Yeah.
That's what I learned. That's what I learned, Duke. And people told me, warned me. People that knew more than I did. They kept telling me, "You're gonna mess up, and you're gonna learn your lesson the hard way." And I almost learned my lesson the hard way that night. I didn't want to start, lighting federal property up. I don't know if you ever heard of the 454 Casull go off.
Yeah, but, it's not a quiet gun. They make a lot of noise.
I don't know if people out there know what that is, but it's got about 60% more power than a 44 Magnum. And if you shoot one at night, it'll shoot about a 4 or 5 foot flame out of the barrel. It's not a pleasant sound. And I really don't want to shoot one anyway, but like I said, I'm not going to get eaten either. And after that happened, I didn't hear nothing. And I sat there, I shit you not, I sat there still as a statue until the sun came up. I was so petrified. I did not want to move in the dark. It's like I almost felt safe in my little 3-foot bubble. But me trying to move around in the dark, and you gotta cross the river 3 or 4 times to get back to the truck. The way the river winds through, and that was an experience. And
my God, man, that night must have seemed like weeks long to you, going through something like that, sitting there by yourself, waiting for the sun to come up.
Yeah, it scared me. That really scared me. But my first experience, I held that in for 15 years. And when I came home, I was married at the time. When I came in the door, my wife knew something was wrong. She, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing. I'm fine. And I don't drink. I can't stand the taste of alcohol. And my wife had a little bottle, or this was something, Jim Beam or whatever, that she used to make mixed drinks with. And I actually took a couple of shots that night when I got her, that day when I got home. I mean, I was so beside myself. I didn't know what to think. I didn't, everything that I had thought I knew was turned upside down. Everything they tell you, is wrong. I know animals can make...
Brother, I went through that when I was 10 years old. That's what happened to me. I saw one of these things that shouldn't be real. It turned my whole world upside down. I know exactly what you're saying.
And let me ask you this. Does anybody else feel this way when I say this? I'm not telling you that I could take you back to this place and guarantee you that you're going to see a Dogman. But I know they're there in that area. And I almost feel like I got a responsibility to keep it quiet. Because I don't want somebody going over there and getting killed, going over there trying to kill one. Everybody says they're impervious. They're impervious to, guns. I don't believe that. I think if I know a creature breathes and bleeds, it can be dealt with. I do think that they're...
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
I do think, to be honest with you, I don't think they carry their vital organs high in the chest like a man does. I think they're lower. I really do. I think they're lower. And if you kind of look at it and turn your head sideways and look at the way it's built, it would kind of make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, I heard a thing about, these Dogmen can't be real because, and this was this guy's reason that he said they couldn't be real. He says because the description, the way that they say the head sits on the body,
the esophagus would be bent in such a way that it couldn't breathe. This is what he said.
Mm.
And I just want to take people like that. They're the people that I would love to take and sit them out there in the woods for 3 or 4 nights and say, okay, now we can play. Game's on. And you'll blink before I blink.
Now,
same way
when
with
you see the Dogman, you explain to him how he can't breathe.
Yeah, you tell me. Yeah, right, you tell me.
I think I'm just going to take your word for it, Donnie, and just never go there with you, ever.
Well, the thing is, guys, I don't try to sell this to anybody. I really don't. I have no axe to grind. Growing up, boogers were just something that was another animal in the woods. And that's the way we were taught. I didn't know any different than when Daddy broke down and we got cable TV. I was like, what? People, what? They're not real. Who are these people? Come on down to the farm here. I'm gonna break science wide open today. Come on down here. You're not gonna get rich on this, but it's. And the thing is, they know they're real. They know. They really do. I mean, I think that it's something about a booger's eyes, the way that they can. Of course, they can see in the daytime, and of course, they can see at nighttime. But I think that their eyes make some kind of transition in between night and day, and maybe at some point in that transition, they have a little trouble seeing things, like when they're going from their night vision to their daytime vision.
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if you could militarize one of these things and train it, I mean, think about the army you could have. I mean, I know that sounds, Star Trek-ish and all that, but I do believe that these things are being studied. I mean, getting it, and I'm not trying to get off subject here, but the mountain giants, things like that. I mean, there's so much in this world that we don't understand and don't know, and got a lot of people out there that because they got 5 letters behind their name, and they stick their chest out and they stick their chin up, and they think they just know everything, and they think that somebody, I have an associate's degree. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can add a little bit and do a little bit of math. So I'm not. You don't have to be smart to know what you see. And I hate when somebody says, "Well, you didn't see that. You saw a bear." Or, man, please. It's almost like
you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, right. Please do not insult me ever again like that. The whole Dogman thing, I can see people kind of cocking their heads, looking at you like, okay, this guy's off his meds today. But, I really don't care. I really don't care. If I cared, I wouldn't go on this, if I cared what people thought, I wouldn't go on this show and put myself out there like that. But I don't care. Daddy told me what they were. I had somebody, that, he didn't throw me right under the bus and let me figure it out for myself.
No problem.
But I had somebody that told me about them, and he wasn't an expert on them by any means, but he knew they were there, and like I say, the people down the street I can't say down the street, down the old bumpy dirt road about a mile from us, I felt bad for those people. I felt bad for them because they had all them. You had 7 women, including the mother, and that's a lot of feminine products, people. And these things can sniff that stuff out, and I don't know if it arouses them or what it does, but we would find. I hate to say this. We would find used tampons in the weirdest places, man. I mean, you could look at them and tell they were old, and so you could tell that you knew what it was. and you knew that there shouldn't be a reason for it to be there, and why would it be there? And,
right. Yeah, that's just one of those oddball things, and it's one of those things that comes up in reports over and over again, too, where you've got young women that are reaching that age where they start cycling. It seems like it starts to attract more attention from the boogers.
But let me ask you a question. You always hear about, and I do believe that, that they do peek in the windows of people 100%. I believe that. I've never had it happen to me personally, but I believe it. And they always think that it's a male looking at these young women or young females as he's looking at it. Has anybody ever thought about maybe it's the mama checking out her, because she's got status too. She's the, she's not the alpha, of course, but I don't know what you want to call her, the beta, or how that works.
Well, the alpha, there's an alpha female usually if there's a troop. The senior most female is, the alpha female, just like the alpha male is, and she's in charge of the other females.
Right, but I think that some of this, I think, of course, I think a baby crime would naturally attract a female. But these alpha females, you think maybe that they think that these young women are maybe competition for them, and they're just checking them out and seeing what's going on?
Well, that's definitely an interesting theory, and I wouldn't put it past them. As smart as they are and as good as their senses are, that's definitely something they could be doing. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I say, I'm not. What I know about a Bigfoot, you could put in a thimble, but I know enough to know that they're there. I know enough that they are to be respected. I know enough that they can, pick you up and beat you against a tree if they choose.
Yeah.
I've seen the boat broken back legs on deer. We have very few hogs down there, very few hogs. But I've heard of people killing a hog that had a broken back leg. I've heard of that. I've never seen it. I had my deer taken. If there would have been another vehicle, I would have heard it if it would have came and picked up that deer.
Right.
And the little bit of time I was gone, I would have seen that man dragging my deer down that dirt road. Because I don't care who you are, you're not going to pull a 175-pound deer that fast. I know when I got to pull one out of the woods, I got to drag it for 25, 30 feet and stop, catch my breath. Pull it another little bit, catch my breath. Because we didn't have no four-wheelers or three-wheelers, and we never did none of that. We had to walk. And, you kill a deer, you killing it's the easy part. That's, hard part's getting it out of the woods. But whatever it was, there was no drag marks, nothing. You could see where the deer had laid there for a few minutes because you could see the blood and all that. And that was it.
So whatever took it, wherever it went with it, it didn't even drag it. It just picked the damn thing up and walked off with it.
Oh, it picked it up, no doubt in my mind. It just picked it up and went on with it. Finders keepers.
Yeah.
And
again, that really narrows it down. What human being can even pick up something that heavy and walk off with it? You're going to have to be a pretty hefty guy to do that.
It could be done, but it couldn't be done that fast. Because like I say, it took me maybe 10 minutes to walk up to my truck.
Mm-hmm.
But the drive back was only a minute, So it's not like I was walking both ways and it took me a lot of time. I had to walk one way.
Right.
And, come back and it was gone. And, I remember Daddy just laughed and, I learned at a young age to keep a lot of this to myself. Didn't go to school bragging that you had these things on your property. Some kids in school knew, but they were smart enough to know too. People. It's just like they can't. I don't know if it's they can't accept it, they won't accept it.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much to be lost, and
Well, tell you something. As far as them picking up dead animals and running off with them that hunters have killed, that happens pretty frequently out here in Montana. And because we have large predators, people automatically go, "Oh, mountain lion drug it away," or "grizzly drug it away." Well, did you see the drag marks? Well, no, but that must have been what took it.
I mean, you can see drag. I mean, I don't know. You know, if you got any tracking skills at all, I'm talking about Ray Charles tracking skills. You can see where something has been drugged through the woods. You can see it.
It's really obvious.
And
really obvious.
You know, I'm not an expert tracker, but you know, I was taught at a young age how to track, what to look for. You know, when you leave the mud and the sand and all that, and you start getting into the pines and stuff like that, that's when the tracking starts. When you have to look for a little broken twig, or the grass is going the wrong way or something, you know. And I know that deer didn't fly away. And when it comes to boogers, you know, I don't do woo. You know, there's nothing about a booger that flies a spaceship. There's nothing magical about them. They're just good at what they do. They're the ultimate woods predator. You know, and if you want to throw a Dogman in the mix, I mean, he's nothing to be played with either. They say that when I described it, they say that the one I saw, the first one, was canine type, which I forget what class, if that's a class 1 or 2, I don't know. But they say that's the one you don't want to run across.
Right.
And I would not want to run across it.
Well, as far as that goes, and just let me put this out as a public safety message to everybody out there. If you're looking at something and you're not sure if it's a Dogman or a Gugwee, it doesn't matter. Get out of there. They're both equally as bad. Neither one of them is going to be friendly.
You taught me the other day, you know, I had heard of the Gugwee and things like that. Like I say, I don't go out and actively research Bigfoot. I know they're there. That's good enough for me. I know what I saw that day, you know, when I went in on my horse. And that's an education you can't get at Harvard. You know, when something like that happens, and, you know,
Well, Donnie, that's why I always tell everybody that there's really 3 classes of people. There's the skeptics, there's the believers, and there's the knowers. And having the idea internalized that these things are probably real, they can be out, it could be that they're out there. You know, I sort of like intellectually believe that there's Bigfoot, and then actually seeing one is a completely different thing. It's a huge difference. You no longer have any doubts in your mind. You know it's real.
Yes.
And it's scary.
It is. And, you know, I've watched these little goofy shows where these guys walk through the forest and they're looking for all these plants. And they're saying, an 800-pound animal could not survive on, you know, these berries. It's like they refuse to believe that these animals actually kill things. You know, I hate to say it, but a little pack of poodles to a Bigfoot is like a bag of Doritos. You know, they will, you know, they have no problem eating your pet, or, you know, that's you know, especially in the lean times of the year. I think that, you know, their primary diet is meat and protein, when there's not a lot out there, like in the cold times.
Yep.
And, you know,
the hungry season.
Yeah, that would be a good word for it. You know, the hungry season. But, you know, folks, don't feed them. Don't feed them. They've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and they're doing just fine. They're doing just fine. Just because if you see a Bigfoot and he don't have a beer belly, that don't mean he's starving.
No.
You know.
And the other thing is, you know, any of that habituation, it works out the same as it does with other large predators. I'll give you a good example. We had somebody up here near Kalispell that was feeding the bears. You know, oh my God, the poor bears are starving. They got to feed them a bunch of food before they go into hibernation. Well, one of those bears didn't get enough food before he went into hibernation, so he actually broke down the door and got into the house of an old lady and killed her and ate her.
Oh my God!
This is an example of habituation, and this just happened right up here, 2015, in northwest Montana. So this is a stark example of what happens when you habituate these animals. It may not be you that pays the penalty for it. It might be some innocent person that hasn't got anything to do with it that's going to end up being killed because of your stupidity. Do not feed them.
If you're doing it and you just happen to move out of the house and somebody else buys the house, unknowing what's going on, Bigfoot don't know that. They don't know that you rolled out because your job transferred you to a different state. And
no. All he knows is he was getting a handout, and all of a sudden the people that were giving him food they're not feeding him anymore, and he gets mad about it.
I just I think about the times that I've walked through the woods and things like that. How many times I've probably just walked within spitting distance of these creatures. That's the kind of stuff that sends chills up my spine. I would much rather.
I'll tell you, Donnie, I went through that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
I went through that here just a few years back, where I started, actually doing some research on the stick structures and stuff. I was never that much interested in it, and then the more I looked at it, the more it was literally scaring the hell out of me, because all these stick structures that I was seeing pictures of were the exact same thing that used to be in the woods behind my house when I was a kid, and I never even thought about it. It never really occurred to me there has to be something out there making these things. And I always just figured, somebody was out here screwing around or something, and they needed to make a teepee to hang a deer from, or what, and you just come up with all kinds of stupid ideas of what it could be to just pacify yourself so that it isn't a mystery. And the more I looked at all these structures, the more I went, Jesus, the woods where I lived was full of these damn things, and I had no idea what I was looking at.
Well, the more you learn, the more light bulbs start to go off,
Yeah.
And,
and that's the truth.
I've seen it. I've seen this where, I would ride in on a horse on the logging road and come back out and not have one tree, but two small trees pushed across the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what does that to a green tree on a day with no wind? You tell me. What
the other thing that freaks me out is when you're going down a trail and there's a bunch of trees knocked down on it, like something is trying to keep you from going down the trail, that's one thing. But when you've been on the trail and you're on your way back out and there's fresh trees knocked over it, like something is trying to keep you in, that's when I get paranoid.
Yeah. It's almost like they use, you know what a funnel trap is?
Yep.
How that works. It's almost like they try to do that. Like they try to push you, like they had 3 or 4 push you into a certain area, and,
Mm-hmm.
You never know. There could be 1 or 2 waiting, just to snatch you up. And then the way these dudes are built, it wouldn't take them but a second to dispatch a human.
Exactly. And that's why it's better to be safe than sorry, because we really, as much as we try and collect information on these guys and match up reports and try and look for things that stand out that are in common with them, and this is how we get a lot of our information on them, other than direct observation, which is really tough. But we still don't know that much about them, and we still don't know what motivates them all the time. And if they're having a bad day and you're pissing them off and they're hungry, well, you might be on the dinner menu. So it's better to not take chances with them ever.
I don't want to overcomplicate them, but, I think they're probably driven by what a lot of creatures are driven by, food and sex.
Yep. Food, sex, and self-preservation. That's pretty much it.
You guys talking about me right now, or?
What did you say?
I said, are you guys talking about me right now, or?
Sure. You might. I don't know. I don't know. How hungry are you?
Well, I'm always hungry. But We're getting close on time here, guys. So if you want to wrap her up, or
all right, yeah, let's wrap her up then. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, or are you pretty much got her covered?
I don't want to sound redundant, repeat myself, but I just wish people would just stop trying to habituate a wild animal that is, even though they have human characteristics and things like that, they can be unpredictable. And as sneaky as they are, it almost, red flag comes up. Why are they being so sneaky? And they have a fear of man that must go back. There's a reason they have this fear of man. And
they're not being elusive and hiding from us because they're our buddies.
Right. They're smart enough to know that when a man carries that understate. Yep. And I could have easily emptied my revolver towards his direction, but there was no point. I didn't want to shoot it. Had it made another step or two, things might have been different. And had I not had my horse there, things might have been different.
Right.
I've told people before that I believe that horse saved my life. I really do.
I agree with you. I think he did. I think if you hadn't had that horse there, he would have reacted a little bit differently than the way he did.
Because even though the horse wasn't spooked, too much. I mean, he wasn't happy, and you could tell he was really nervous. But when I got on him, I didn't have to kick him twice to move.
He was more than happy to get out of there.
He was plenty motivated that day. And, I think about it, maybe he wasn't so freaked out because maybe he's seen them before. I don't know. I don't live in the state.
Very likely, actually.
I don't live on this when he's kept in the barn at night or when he's kept out in the pasture. I don't sleep with him out there at night. I don't know what he sees.
Exactly.
But anyway.
Well,
like I said,
again,
I'm trying to sell. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Doc.
Again, I'm not trying to sell this to anybody. If you don't believe it, and you think you know an area that, and you got the kahunas to do it, strap up your boots, and go out at nighttime. It's not that they're not active in the daytime, because they are. But you'll find things in the forest that will change your perspective of how this world works.
I'd like to let everybody know that there is Bigfoot out there. Bigfoot are all over most of the country except the Plain States, Hawaii. So any place where there's woods, there's a lot of animals. You see a lot of wildlife, big woods, ready water supplies. It's likely there's some around there.
Water.
Keep your eyes peeled for them. Yep, they got to have that water, and they like to cover. You're not going to see them out on the Great Plains. They can't ambush. That's how they hunt, and they're too obvious. They're too big.
I think the thicker, the better, for them, because that's perfect, perfect ambush conditions where they can sit perfectly still. They look like they're just part of the forest, and the village, the village idiot deer walks by, and bada bing, bada boom, is over. Then the hooping starts. If they make that kill, the hooping starts. And it's dinner time. And that's all I really wanted to say. Maybe if you're a non-believer and you got too smart of a mouth, and maybe we can take a ride, and maybe I can give you an education. I'm not trying to sound like a smart ass, but if you really believe that they're not out there, come on down to Cumberland County, Virginia, and give you a little education.
Awesome. Well, Donnie, thanks so much for coming on the show. I had a great time talking to you, and I'm sure the people are just going to love hearing your encounters. They're pretty damn scary. I heard them once already. It still creeped me out to hear them the second time. And, like I said, I really appreciate you being on the show, and really, thrilled that you were willing to come on and especially share your Dogman encounter. A lot of people don't want to talk about that sort of thing. It's just so far out on the edge.
I kind of, when we talked before, I told you, I would share it. It just creeps me out, man.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Acceptable, it's an acceptable creature, but Dogman, like that's it's a biological train wreck.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this show, because we want to get this information out to people to at least make them aware of what potentially could be out in the woods that they're walking around in. Be safe. Be careful when you're out there. You never know what you're going to run into. And it doesn't have to be a Bigfoot. It can be some crazy guy with a meth lab. It can be somebody with a marijuana grow operation. It can be some nutso hermit. You never know what you're going to run into. Just be careful when you're out in the woods and watch the area around you. Look up occasionally.
And just for the audience, so they know, that's exactly why I carry that 454 pistol on my hip. It's not really because of the birds and stuff out there. It's the hairless apes that I worry about. That are out there, growing the marijuana.
Amen, brother. We got plenty of those up here to worry about, too. You never know what you're going to run into.
Crazy.
Well, again, thanks for being on the show, Donnie. It's really great having you on here.
Crazy. All right, guys. Well, I thank you for having me. Keep in touch, dude.
We certainly will. You keep in touch with us too, brother. If you get any more interesting encounters or anything, just let us know.
All right, man. Y'all take care.